Picks up the pieces of last week's unrest. People from the formerly exclusively Indian area of Phoenix in the north of Durban are still tainted with racism allegations. As social media continues to circulate videos of racial attacks, communities from both predominantly Indian and black areas are now calling for their voices to be heard. SABC News senior reporter Jayed-Leigh and Reginald Witbooi compiled this insert.
Phoenix, 20 kilometers northwest of central Durban. Phoenix was established as a township in 1976. It is also one of the oldest Indian settlements in South Africa, with indentured laborers from sugarcane plantations making their homes here more than 100 years ago. After the passing of the Group Areas Act, Phoenix became an Indian township. Sections were initially labelled as precincts or units, and then later renamed with proper street addresses. After the dawn of democracy, schools and communities became integrated. Forest Haven Secondary School is one of the first Indian schools in the country to have embraced South African black learners post-1994. BP Singh is a former teacher at the school. He recalls those years as a time of cultural inclusion and diversity.
At this point in time, this particular school, while it is situated in the so-called Phoenix Indian area, 70% of the schooling population are our South African students. And I think that's a very important point to say that our learners for the last 27 years have studied together, they've learned together, they've grown up together. Many of our South African communities live in Phoenix. Phoenix is not an Indian community, it's a multiracial community, if I may use the word race. And that's important because, especially in the current times where you look at the fact that there seem to be tensions between groupings, it's not really a true reflection.
But Phoenix, albeit rich in diversity, has now been tainted with allegations of racism. As looters ran amok in KwaZulu-Natal, it is alleged that Indians committed racially motivated attacks. Such incidents and alleged murders were brought to authorities' attention. This saw Police Minister Jayed-Leigh visit the area to quell tensions. At first, authorities claimed it was not in fact racial profiling, but the acts of criminal elements. During the unrest, 20 people were allegedly killed in Phoenix. Authorities then established a task team to investigate.
Kufabantu la community angisho ukuthi nami kungibeka under pressure ukuthi kuze kube manje useyedwa umuntu obulawelwe oboshelwe imeke ukhona yedwa but esikwenzile sakhe i-special team yabaseshi ama-investigators angasuki kulezi iteshi asuka kwi-region asuke kwi-district abawu-10 abazobhekana nalama-case kuphela.
South Africans of African descent SABC News spoke to say they were attacked unprovoked.
I was shot by the Indians. I was driving with my friends in a car and they started chasing us and shooting at us. I got hit by bullets at the back of my head. I went to the clinic. I did not get any help. As we speak, I'm suffering severe headaches. The Indian community first ran him over with the car and came back and hit him with the nopkeri. Ever since I was born, I've never seen someone die with so much brutality.
But some remain steadfast, saying they wanted to protect their communities. These South Africans from Indian descent feel it was never racially motivated.
If we were racist, why haven't we manned up and gone into other places and did what they're trying to do to our section? It's not fair on us being the minority and having little numbers, protecting our little utilities that we have, our resources that we have. We've protected the Phoenix Plaza and our resources since Monday. We're not racist.
I don't think it's a racial tension. It has never been a racial tension in Phoenix and with the black community because we have lived together in unity since I can remember. The reason why we are protecting our communities is because of the fact of the looting that happened on Monday. Now, Bekitele did mention yesterday, and we thank him for the solution, that the SANDF and law enforcement will be positioned at our borderlines and our checkpoints. Now, if the law enforcement and SANDF had come to our checkpoints and stood there like our guys have been doing since Monday, then we would not give them a hassle, we would back down.
A race relations expert cautions against ascribing events to race.
It is easy to call it a race war because, after all, I think this is what the organizers of the mayhem would have liked to see. I believe they would have shot at anybody. It just so happened that the people who were there and looting were Africans.
Zulu says the racism allegations play into the hands of instigators of the unrest.
I think as South Africans, we must, by all means, make sure that before we make pronouncements, particularly dangerous pronouncements that might create disorder in the country, we know the facts clearly, or that we conduct a proper analysis. There is a fertile ground for mutiny, put it that way. But once you organize on that fertile ground for your own purposes, which was the case in this particular instance, the mutiny might take any direction.
But did social media contribute to the mayhem and panic, resulting in many communities taking up arms? Some experts believe so.
The hate and discrimination in a country that is rich in cultural and racial diversity was further exacerbated by misinformation that was trending on social media in large numbers. People were sharing videos and they were sharing visual impressions and so on of incidences of violence and so on. Now this had such a negative effect on the people. It either, on the one hand, right, created fear and anxiety amongst the people that were watching the visuals, or on the other hand, some of the visuals were creating incitement. It was inciting people. So social media in this instance was used in a very negative way, and it created so much of hype and uncertainty.
Alicia Bagwati says her mother was shot in her head by a stray bullet whilst preparing supper.
She was hit on her forehead. The bullet, thank God it didn't hit any major arteries or anything like that. It hit and it bounced, basically grazed her. She was bleeding excessively. My neighbor and myself, we helped to stop the bleeding, and we tried our best to get an ambulance, but nobody could come out because they refused to come out because our area is regarded as a red zone.
For some who witnessed the unrest and lived in fear, their truth is all they know. This man, who wishes to remain anonymous, recalls the night he was attacked.
I was coming from work when I passed 4 Indian males. The next thing I heard was gunshots towards me. I'm now injured. I have several wounds on my body. All I want is for the police to investigate and find the culprits.
But the violence also reminded many of the past. More than 1,500 Indian families lost everything as they fled their homes during the 1985 Inanda riots, which saw clashes between black communities. Govender believes incidents of racism should be addressed by communities and not swept under the carpet.
We now have to have a solution-driven initiative where we need to find solutions in a community, where the people themselves need to tell us exactly what they want going forward in terms of racial disharmony and so on. Yes, this looting and so on, also there was an element of racial tensions, especially in Phoenix, Chatsworth and other places. Now we need to find out how can we overcome that racial disharmony? What needs to be done? Where did we go wrong? Right, as a society.
As a community named after the mythical phoenix, a bird that rises up from the ashes, there is still a fire that burns in the hearts of many who reside here. And much like the mighty bird associated with the sun, so the community here say they will once again rise from the ashes. Jayed-Leigh and Reginald Witbooi for SABC News in Durban.